Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne. This is my video coaching newsletter, and the topic of today's newsletter is going to be her lack of boundaries with other men led to our breakup. Well, this particular email is from a viewer. He started following my work after he was already in a relationship with this particular woman, probably for, I guess, a year or two before he came across it. But between the baby daddy, her ex-baby daddy, and just other men hanging out with him one-on-one, he tried to set healthy boundaries. She wasn't having it. And eventually it just led to the end of the relationship. But it's a really good email to learn from because it's a little lengthy, but there's just a lot of good info in here. Because we can learn from somebody that got involved with somebody like this. Because remember, I say it all the time, character is destiny. And part of the dating process, obviously this guy came across my work after he was already in the relationship. But under normal circumstances, you're looking for the kind of behavior that this woman exhibits so you can know to disqualify her. She doesn't have the same goals and values, doesn't really value loyalty. Her dad cheated on her mom. And it's just, that's what was modeled for. So if that's what's modeled for a woman growing up, that's her value system typically. Not in all cases, but most of the time, you're just not going to fix it. It's just not something you can work with. You can have fun with her, but you don't put a ring on her finger, and you certainly don't make her your girlfriend. So he says, "Hey, Corey, I've been into your material for a few years, and I've read your book 12 times. I really wish I had gotten into your material much, much earlier, but I didn't. I've recently ended a 4.5-year relationship with my girlfriend. Something always felt off with her, and my gut has been telling for years that she's just not good for me. One of the main reasons I stayed with her was her kids. Her daughter and I became close, and she would often call me dad mistakenly, and all her friends would refer to me as her dad. Her dad is in her life, just not very involved in her life. Being very honest with myself, I love my now ex-girlfriend, but I was more in love with the idea of our relationship." And a lot of us do that. It's like we want the search to be over. We want to be like, all right, this is the person. This is our person, the one. And when we project that fantasy, anything that doesn't align with that fantasy, we often, especially once we're emotionally invested, we just dismiss it. We'll ignore the red flags and we'll just keep the hammer down and keep moving forward, even though it says the bridge is out up ahead. We're like, oh, well, hopefully it's rebuilt by the time I get there and I don't go off the cliff. He says, about 8 months into the relationship, she said she wanted to marry me, and I asked her to marry me a month later. That's pretty soon. We didn't get married, thankfully, but had I done things right, I could have really avoided some heartache all around, and honestly, not stay in this relationship for as long as I did. Well, you're in good company because most of us tend to stay in a relationship longer than we should. I mean, we all know people are like that. You're like, that relationship ain't working. Yep. They just stick it out, and eventually they do break up, but after staying way longer than they should have. Because again, remember, most people don't want to be single. They don't know what the next person's going to be like or when the next person's going to come along. It's the fear of the unknown. Remember, people do more to avoid pain than they do to gain pleasure. So I'd much rather stay with somebody that's bad because it's a known quantity than become single again and not knowing what you're dealing with or when somebody good's going to come along. During what should have been the vetting process and her locking me down in a relationship, I was the one locking her down. I know, totally beta and boneheaded move. Well, you didn't know what you didn't know. It's not like they teach you this stuff in school, and your parents, especially your dads, they don't know this stuff. Unless, of course, you were born in a family with a dad that's just a natural and he gets it. But most of us, the overwhelming majority, it's just not going to happen that way. I completely ignored her behavior, her situation with her ex, and her lack of boundaries with him. Looking back, it was all so much more. Her boundaries with her ex was simply unacceptable and often became a point of contention between us, and I ended up breaking up with her twice over this. I'll give some key points here. Sharing a hotel room with him when they were out of town with the kids, him being at her home late in the evenings, and I'm pretty sure the kids were asleep. There was one occasion she was going to a function and I offered to go with her, and she said she wasn't going to be long and just wanted to go on her own, and she was leaving the kids at home. Well, how'd that turn out? Her ex was going to the same function, and she ended up picking him up, and they went together. Oh, how nice. Her lack of boundaries with men overall are questionable, and she has and does entertain attention from other men. Well, she didn't learn it from her father, which guys to trust, how to interact with men in a healthy way. She often develops the Frankenstein boyfriend project, where even though you might be your boyfriend, she's still getting attention from other guys, or maybe guys that do favors for her, buy her things, take her to lunch, be her emotional tampon, that kind of thing. Some other notable behavior: consistently canceling dates to go out with her friends. So that's just low interest. So that's the thing. He wasn't aware of my work, and the reason she would cancel dates is because her interest was low. And she knew she could get away with it because he was obviously too soft and too squishy. But this all, for the most part, happened before he came across my work. So by that point, he'd been with her for years, and he'd kind of trained her that that's the way things are. Plus, she doesn't really have the value system that would have worked anyways long term. I took her to Cozumel at the end of the tourist season. I chartered a boat to go snorkeling. We were the only 2 passengers on a 3+ hour charter. 3-hour tour. Well, I guess he didn't end up on Gilligan's Island. A 3-hour tour. I don't speak Spanish, and she does. She spent most of the boat ride talking to the 2 guys that ran the boat, all in Spanish, and left me sit in the back of the boat. Yep, she didn't respect you either. That's just fucking rude. We went to Rome last year, and our server spoke both English and Spanish, and she elected to have this conversation with him in Spanish, laughing and joking, etc. Again, just excluding me entirely. Well, that's because she didn't think very highly of you. And she's doing it on purpose. She knows it's rude, but she doesn't care, and she's doing it because she doesn't respect you. That's why. I fell in the trap of proving myself and my worth to her early in the relationship. I was like, well, there you go. In other words, you're seeking her attention and her approval like a woman should be doing. So that ruins the sexual polarity. If you act like a chick, if you act like a bitch, women are going to treat you like a bitch. It's just a fact of life. She always had projects set up for me at her house, from painting to building a roof extension in her backyard. So he was also the Harry Honda. After reading her book and a lot of self-reflection, it took me a while to overcome the beta behavior. This ultimately led to me ending things with her recently. So you can get a sense of her family often calls her rude, inconsiderate, and selfish. Her kids would sometimes say, "It's not about you all the time." Her son actually had to correct her for the way she was speaking to me one evening. Well, if her son's correcting her, that just shows you're allowing it. And whatever you tolerate, you invite more of. So if you allow her to disrespect you in front of everybody, including her children, and the kids are speaking up for you, you're acting like a doormat. And so therefore, you're not going to get any respect for her. That's why she flirts with other men and other languages in front of you and laughs and doesn't include you at all. I would correct her behavior when it was just us, and I would wait when she did it in front of the kids. So you're being discreet, and she's punking you in front of the children. Because, again, she doesn't respect you as a man. But then again, it's not like she had a father that was worthy of respect, so that's what he taught her. She corrected that behavior when it was just us as well, alone, but had no problems verbally demeaning me in front of the kids. Our sex life went way downhill to once or twice a month. Yep, she didn't feel safe and comfortable with you either, because again, you're acting like a beta male the whole time, a people pleaser. I never met her dad because he passed away. From what I've heard about him, he always treated her like a princess, never disciplining her, and giving in to whatever she wanted. So she learned that men are soft and squishy. And if you just nag them enough, they'll cave. And so that's what she learned. That's what was modeled for her. That's not a healthy archetype. Just because she loved her dad When the dad treats her like a princess, never reprimands her, never points out that she did anything wrong, lets her get away with everything, that's what she expects. He was a cheater and an abusive husband. Her parents divorced when she was 18. Circling back to her sharing a hotel room with her ex, 2 months later I found out. I asked why she didn't say anything before she went to the beach with him and the kids, and she responded, "You never asked." Don't ask, don't tell. Much of her behavior I mentioned above had similar excuses, and she seemed dumbfounded that I was bringing it up. Yeah, why wouldn't she be dumbfounded? Let me look what the dad had modeled. Dad was abusive, cheated on mom, and then they split up when she was 18. And so dad did not do a good job, if you guys haven't figured that out already. It's pretty obvious. But, it's why I go through emails like this. So when you're dating and you're asking a girl questions and she's telling you about her family, or maybe you're on a date and you're meeting her family, and then you see this kind of behavior, you're like, I remember that email Corey went through. I would then ask her, how would she like it if I was doing that with my ex? She responded by saying she definitely would not be okay with it. Enough said. So the double standard, she expects it. Again, that's what her father taught her, because her dad let her get away with everything. So even if it was inappropriate, she got away with it anyway. So for her, it didn't matter. But for you, you gotta keep the standard. But for her, she can be an ass, and she's been trained that she can get away with it. She talked about her previous relationships when we first met. She had few very long-term relationships, and it was evident that her rude behavior and just no sense of being in a relationship was the downfall of those relationships. She was in a long-term relationship with a married man for years, on and off, before a one-night stand with her ex. When the married guy said he didn't want her because she was pregnant with another man's kid, she moved baby daddy in and eventually married him. She routinely kicked him out of the house and only let him move back in for a couple of years because she wanted more kids and wanted them to have the same father. Well, that seems like a nice logic there. The married guy resurfaced into her life. Her then husband was kicked out of the house again, and then she finally divorced her husband. She carried on with this married guy for 5 years before I met her. She then finally decided to end things with him because he wasn't going to divorce his wife and marry her. I mean, it was a decade with that guy, basically. And what is that guy doing? He's cheating on his wife. Oh yeah, it's just I just need the right time. She's very fragile right now. She's depressed. In the fall, then I'll definitely file for a divorce and leave her, and then we can be together. And then there's always some excuse. And so after about a decade of that, and 2 different times dating the guy, she realized he was never going to leave his wife. She was just getting punked. But that's what father did to mom, so that's normal to her. So she kept making excuses because that's what her dad taught her. Yes, I know there are red flags all over. Yes, I know I definitely should not have progressed things with her. And yes, I know that I have compounded bad decision after bad decision. Well, the good news is that you're acknowledging your fuck-ups. And so therefore, that enables you to fix them because you acknowledge where you went wrong. A lot of guys don't do that. A lot of guys just blame, it's modern women. This is the problem. It's social media ruined this girl. That's what the red pill retards say. And then you can't fix anything in yourself because it's not your fault. It's social media. It's modern women. You got to control the controllables, and that's what you have control over. I want to share my experience with you. So much of what I hear you say, listen to her actions and not her words, character is destiny, relationship with the father, and we can probably add what our previous relationships like. Yep, those are important things to ask and to understand and to know, especially before you get serious. In contrast, I went on my first date last night with a woman I met from Facebook. It was late Saturday when we chatted, and she asked when I was going to ask her out. I told her Friday evening, and she responded, "How about tonight?" It was late on Saturday evening, like midnight late. I turned her down and said, "I don't want to eat that late." She agreed and said, "Is tomorrow 7:30 too late?" I agreed and told her where to meet me. She texted me a bit through the day, and I was busy and didn't respond to her too quickly and just kept things slow. We met and had a great conversation. I let her do much of the talking, but to contrast her values, at least talking about them to my ex-girlfriends. She seems to have a good relationship with her dad. She's a single mom with 3 kids. Her oldest is almost 24, which is about the same age as my oldest. I didn't have to say much regarding her ex. She said she didn't talk to him outside the kids. He has his time with the kids and she has hers. When he started dating, she said she would insist on boundaries with him, not letting him linger in her home for hours when he picked them up, and insisted that they were respectful to the woman he was seeing. Well, that's a good sign. That's what you look for. I highlight this because it's refreshing to meet someone who does have a sense of being respectful of someone's relationship. Well, if you got an honorable father who's a good man, who teaches his daughter right and wrong, well, she's not going to act like a garbage human like this guy's ex did and her father before her did. Character's destiny. If the dad did a shitty job raising his daughter, you're not going to have an easy and effortless relationship with her. That just doesn't happen typically. Unless the woman gets a therapist and really does a lot of work on herself. But most of the time they won't. They just will not do anything. Because they're usually too hot and there's too many soft guys that'll put up with her shit. I don't plan on calling her until Wednesday to make a second date for this weekend. Yes, I'm talking to other women and not getting sucked into she's the one. Well, Bob, thanks for sharing. That was a really great detailed email, what to learn from. And it's like you just see the same patterns over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's just not going to work with a woman when you see her this way. And so that's why it's important to keep your eyes open and find out about her relationship with her dad, what her relationships with her exes were like, how she treats other men, those kinds of things. Does she keep her word? You got to learn these things. You got to understand these things before you get serious. But, you know, like I said, this guy came to my work when he was in the middle of the relationship already. But hindsight's always 20/20. So if you got a question or challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the coaching tab at the top of your screen on any page of my website, and book a coaching session with yours truly. If you haven't already signed up for our paying exclusive premium members only content, in the video description is video. There are links to join on YouTube, or you can join on Spotify or our website, understandingrelationships.com. Just click the plans tab when you get there. You can sign up for a 7-day free trial to check out what content you get for your money. And if you choose an annual plan, you get a 25% discount at the end of the 7-day free trial for paying the whole year's premium up front. So go to understandingrelationships.com, click the plans tab at the top of your screen when you arrive there, and sign up for a free trial for our premium content. And until next time, I will talk to you soon.